Hello everyone, welcome to another exciting video. Standards, how that applied to Jehovah's Witnesses. Really funny. It depends upon life and death that you could cause someone to lose their life. Hey, this is about what he's quoting from his talk, okay? Bear with me. And so they mentioned about the scales of weighing certain things that don't have a faulty scale to cheat people out of the money. Well, what about Watchtower cheating Jehovah's Witnesses out of their monies and making them believe that this is God's organization and your money is to support the preaching work, and actually is supporting their stocks and bonds, put more money into it. The child abuse is worldwide. So isn't that like Watchtower is not being honest with their scales to Jehovah's Witnesses? And this guy started off about buildings being on fire because the persons who built these buildings, they didn't took the time to build them right the first time. So people was losing their lives. That business probably got so much lawsuit that they went belly up. Sounds like Watchtower to me, because that's the reason why they're going belly up when they're selling all their kingdom halls, because financially these kingdom halls is not making a profit except losing money because there's no members. They're allowed to keep the power going, everything going, and sending money to Watchtower. So basically this talk is talking about Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, what the standards, burning buildings, and scales that when you're selling something, you're not cheating the person. What does that got to do with Ezekiel chapter 40? When it mentioned about God took Ezekiel into the future with the third temple, or what we call from the Bible, Ezekiel's temple. That would be the third temple, since they already have first temple, Solomon's temple. The second temple is Herod's temple, and this is Ezekiel's temple. Well, not temple, but you know what I'm saying. It'd be the third temple for the Jewish people. Now, Jehovah's Witnesses Watchtower is trying to take this temple and make it look like it's not a literal temple, but it practically is talking about the future of Jehovah's Witnesses as like a temple in God's eyes. Why would God have Ezekiel to put out a diagram? It's just like putting a car together. Every nut, bolt, computer chip, wheels, carburetor, steering wheel, everything, headlights, taillights, everything. He had every detail in this third temple. And if Jehovah's Witnesses really Google the third temple or Ezekiel temple, they would find out the Jewish people is already a process to have this temple to be built. They have granted problems, but it's going to be solved, because in the book of Revelation it mentioned about the two prophets in front of the temple. It mentioned different parts of the Bible, even near the end of Ezekiel. I think it could be 50, somewhere around that area, 49 through 50. It mentioned that there's going to be a stream coming out of the area of the temple, the outside, and it's going to have create a big giant river, trees on both sides. There's going to be so much fish in that water that it's going to be almost more than the ocean water, in the borderline. How can all of this is symbolic? I mean, why would God create a vision to Ezekiel to deceive him, that's showing him what the future of his own people, his own land, is going to happen? Would God deceive Ezekiel? No. Watchtower has the nerve to quote from the book of Ezekiel and try to do a 360 and make it look like it's not talking about a little temple. It's talking about a spiritual temple, and all the measurements and all of that is basically for their organization, so they can have good measuring, good everything. So they want a pure religion, that it would look like God is building a temple, and Jehovah's Witnesses foundation of their religion is based on like a blueprint in the book of Ezekiel. Now, when this religion is covered up pedophiles, you can Google it, pedophiles Watchtower. You can Google subliminal images Watchtower, false prophecies Watchtower, and a few other things. Why would God have Ezekiel wasting his time to have a vision for religion in the future that went ape crazy, and what they call would have been the truth, and now it's so corrupt, it's pure evil? And of course they never had the truth, because Charles T. Russell was a con artist. Feel sorry for the Bible students, but he was just like Judge Rutherford. Money hungry, power, and the glory. So analyze this talk. I think it's about 9 minutes long. Give me your thoughts. If you read the scriptures the way it is, if it wasn't for this third temple, bunch of the Bible prophecies will not come true. So this temple got to be built for the Bible to be almost completed of its prophecies. And when you go by Jehovah's Witnesses thinking ability, the Bible and the future would not ever exist. Because if you base your religion, base your thinking on this religion, there will be no Armageddon. There will be nothing. This world will keep going the way it's been going, because without certain things to be fulfilled in the Bible prophecy, Christ cannot return till everything is in order. Either way, this third temple got to be built before or after he returns. And I mean, it's going to have to be built. Either way, he's going to come, they're going to build it, or it's going to be built and he's going to return. Either way, this temple has to be built. So, thank you for watching this, and y'all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Ezekiel's temple vision and you. In virtually every part of our daily lives, we use standards. We as humans like to measure things, and one way we measure things is with standards. Having good standards and following them, though, can mean people's lives. For example, a few months ago, in London, the Grenfell Tower tragically burned, and many people lost their lives. It's been reported that some of the building materials did not meet current standards, and it's being blamed for the fire spreading so quickly. So yes, organizations have standards, but far too often we see compromises on standards that have been set. It would seem that standards are set and to be upheld and followed only when it's convenient. People may be looking to save money or time and oftentimes ignore standards. And when this happens and organizations get caught, they may face financial penalties, even to the point where they go out of business. Almost always, though, it damages their reputation, and it in turn leads to customers looking elsewhere. So we can see that there's a very high price to pay for failing to meet standards set in this world that we live in. Well, Jehovah has standards. Jehovah has perfect standards. And as we're going to review tonight in Ezekiel's vision, Jehovah has set standards for pure worship high. We're also going to examine a few points from Ezekiel's temple vision that'll help us to appreciate that Jehovah will fulfill his purpose regarding pure worship, and that we really need to follow Jehovah's standards. Let's open to Ezekiel chapter 40. And let's look at verse 2, and this is really the setting for this vision. Notice there in verse 2 it says, "By means of visions from God, he brought me to the land of Israel and set me down on a very high mountain on which there was a structure like a city to the south." So here we see in this setting that it's high up on a mountain. There's a similar description in the book of Micah. Turn there with me. In Micah chapter 4, verse 1, notice what it says. "In the final part of the days, the mountain of the house of Jehovah will become firmly established above the top of the mountains, and it will be raised up above the hills, and to it peoples will stream." So again we see Jehovah's worship is high up, like on a mountaintop, over all other forms of worship. And this is happening now. The fulfillment of that scripture is taking place in these final last days. Let's continue reading back over in Ezekiel chapter 40. And let's look at verse 3 to see some more detail of this temple. "When he brought me there, I saw a man whose appearance was like that of copper. He had a flax cord and a measuring reed in his hand, and he was standing in the gateway. And then let's look at verse 5. I saw a wall surrounding the outside of the temple. In the man's hand was a measuring reed 6 cubits long. To each cubit a handbreadth was added. He began to measure the wall, and its thickness was 1 reed, and its height was 1 reed. So here we see some measuring being done in this temple. What's noteworthy about this measuring that's being done here? Well, it simply means that Jehovah's purpose in regards to his elevated pure worship will be fulfilled. And that can give us strength of faith in that, in Jehovah. And it also could motivate us to action. Well, let's continue reading in Ezekiel and see what's required on us. What action can we take? In verse 10, we see some more detail of this vision. There were 3 guard chambers on each side of the east gate. The 3 were the same size, and the side pillars on either side were the same size. Verse 14. Then he measured the side pillars, which were 60 cubits tall, as well as the side pillars in the gates all around the courtyard. And then finally verse 16. There were windows with narrowing frames for the guard chambers and for their side pillars inside the gate on each side. The interior of the porches also had windows on each side, and there were palm tree figures on the side pillars. So again, some more detail of this temple vision. But if we notice in verse 16 there were palm tree figures on the side pillars. Let's look over in the book of Psalms. Turn there with me. Let's see if we can understand what these palm trees mean. Psalms chapter 92. And then look at verse 12. The first part says, "But the righteous will flourish like a palm tree." The righteous will flourish like a palm tree. So this is teaching us that we need to be righteous. Not only will we flourish, but it's a requirement to enter into Jehovah's temple of pure worship. Those palm tree carvings on the entryway there mean that the only way we can enter is by being morally upright. Yes, we have to be living by Jehovah's standards. What are some ways that we can live by Jehovah's lofty and high standards? Well, it's very common that employers have their employees take ethical training courses each year. And they know that a continual reminder is needed for their employees to maintain the company standards. Well, we need to do the same thing. We need to regularly, more often than once a year obviously, but we need to regularly review Jehovah's standards. One example is in Proverbs chapter 11. The first part of that chapter, we see different areas of life where we need to uphold our integrity to Jehovah's standards. And then we see blessings if we do uphold those standards. One example of that is in verse 1. It highlights business practices and that we need to be honest in them. It says that dishonest scales are detestable to Jehovah, but accurate scales brings pleasure to him. So we wouldn't want to forsake Jehovah's standards and engage in unethical practices. Well, why not take some time and review some of the standards that are highlighted in this chapter? Because just like in the business world, they can suffer consequences for not upholding standards, we too could miss out on Jehovah's blessings. We could miss out on that coming paradise if we fail to maintain Jehovah's high standards. So let us continue to flourish like those palm trees and maintain Jehovah's righteous standards.
Brother Thompson, thank you for taking us into a closer look of what that temple vision can mean for all of us. Now we'll give our attention to Brother Torres,